Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is your tropical update for September 9th. We're currently watching severe tropical storm Francine located over the Gulf of Mexico. Hurricane, tropical storm, and storm surge watches are now in effect for Mexico, Texas, and Louisiana and Mississippi. So, a lot to talk about with that. The main threat at the moment is expected to be storm surge and rainfall, of course. No big surprise there. We're also watching two areas of interest, Invest 92L and soon to be Invest 93L, located over the Central Atlantic at the moment. I've kept the minimal risk up for the northern Leeward Islands, but expect that to be dropped tomorrow with those decreasing odds due to 92L. The main topic of conversation, as indicated, is severe tropical storm Francine. We're having issues with the satellite, as you saw on our opening image from the recon. The recon showing the center down to 996 millibars, and we do have a relatively strong center. The center is getting stronger. As you can see, the strongest winds were far away from the center of the storm when the center was over here. The center has since jumped over here, and we do have a slightly stronger wind barb located within this area of convection within Francine, which means the storm is likely on its way to be strengthening. As a result, the Hurricane Center has upped this to a severe tropical storm with winds of 60 miles an hour instead of 50. So this is well on its way to becoming a tropical a hurricane, really. And at this point, maybe even a stronger hurricane. You'll note this odd direction of the cone. Part of that's due to the consolidation. Wouldn't be surprised if we see a bit nudge of a cone one way or the other over the course of time. As I mentioned, the tropical storm, hurricane, and storm surge watches are in effect for both Texas, Mexico, Louisiana, and into parts of Mississippi. So let's talk about that. First off, flooding 4 to 8 inches. We're looking isolated 8 to 12. The worst threat for that will be near and just to the north, just to the north, but a little more to the west of the landfall point at this point in time. Storm surge will be concerned. That's basically all of the Louisiana coastline, 5 to 10 feet. We'll talk more about that in a second. Winds worst in Louisiana, as we can see with the new Hurricane Center cone. We can see those inland hurricane watches in effect for Louisiana at this point in time, as well as widespread tropical storm watches on either side of the cone, as well as for areas in Mexico and Texas over the next couple of days as the storm begins to move. Tornadoes will also be a concern for Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. We'll continue to monitor that threat as well. Let's move on to the rainfall expected from the Weather Prediction Center. So you can see the worst rainfall will be between Lake Charles and New Orleans, probably towards the center, thinking Cameron, somewhere like there. So that's kind of what we're thinking at this point in time. We'll continue to monitor the trends with this. Trends have been fairly consistent, a solid amount of rain down here, and then a continued large amount of rain into the Midwestern United States, into the Ohio Valley region as we move on with time. As I mentioned, the major threat with this system is going to be storm surge. We're looking at 5 to 10 feet from Cameron all the way over to Port Fourchon. Mainly Vermilion Bay is going to be the main area. This is a very hurricane storm surge prone area in Louisiana, so no surprises here. However, the one caveat, if you will, is this angle of attack, if you will, of Francine coming basically paralleling the coastline from the west, making landfall in this direction is very unusual. So to be fair, we don't have a lot of data points to guess what the storm surge might be. That's why we have this large 5 to 10 foot range at this point in time. 4 to 7 all the way to the mouth of the Mississippi, and 2 to 4 up from the mouth of the Mississippi to the Mississippi-Alabama border. Storm surge watch in effect for all of these areas, all the way to High Island, where we could also see 3 to 5. We also have 2 to 4 feet in Lake Pontchartrain as well. That includes those areas not in levees. Again, levied areas are not expected to flood. That's how they built them, or theoretically how they built them. We're also looking at 1 to 3 from Freeport to High Island over in Texas. So a lot of areas to watch here, and you can see a little less as we get into the inland bays on the west side of the storm. On the east side of the storm, that's not going to be the case, as is expected of this very storm surge prone area in Louisiana. Winds will also be a concern, as mentioned. We will likely have a hurricane tomorrow or the next day. At the rate we're going, I'm going to bet tomorrow. The National Hurricane Center says rapid intensification is possible, although not explicitly forecast. The good news is, by the time we get close to landfall, the system should begin to experience some shear and dry air, which will level off its intensification. How strong it gets before then, really, the sky's the limit. We have extremely favorable waters over this future of the system, and so essentially, this thing is going to strengthen until it begins to be affected by dry air and shear, which will happen around landfall time. If worst case scenario, I'm going to say Cat 3 at this point. Cat 2 is seemingly becoming more likely with how strong this system is getting this early on in its development. So we'll continue to monitor the progress of Francine tomorrow. I'll have an update out on that. Tropical storm force winds possible along the Louisiana coastline beginning Tuesday evening, further inland. That'll be at daybreak Wednesday. The final threat to discuss on Francine before we move on to our other system is tornadoes. There is a tornado threat for much of Louisiana, southern Mississippi, and portions of southern Alabama, even a little bit of the far western Florida panhandle. We'll continue to monitor those threats for the New Orleans, even maybe parts of Lake Charles, Mobile, and southern Mississippi areas as we move on with time. And yeah, this will be a continued concern. Invest 92L, here is that thing. As you can see, not looking particularly amazing at the moment. National Hurricane Center dropping the odds to 60% chance within the next 7 days. Here's our invest, or our future invest over the Central Atlantic. You're wondering why there's an X where there's no clouds. That's because there's a low pressure here. There's a tropical wave right here. These two things are going to end up combining, and that results in this very oddly shaped area of 70% chance of formation. We will likely have another tropical storm between either this one or 92, or maybe even both, maybe even another one after this. We are probably going to have a couple tropical waves develop within the Atlantic Ocean here within the next couple weeks. That's all for now. I'll be back with more tomorrow on Francine. Remember, if you are under a watch warning or evacuation order, to heed those guidances from your local authority. That's all for now. Chris Dixon, Informer Media.